as long as there's life, the issues of security would always need to be looked at. How best to improve and ensure that it is effective day in, day out. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, news broke of those attacks in Benue, Nasarawa, and then there's issues also in Kaduna as well, and other northwest and northeast states. In Abuja, over the weekend, there was that unrest between two tribes in the Gwarimpa area of Abuja. Again, a disagreement over a very minor issue. So one begins to wonder, how do we balance peace? How do we ensure that there's consistent peace when there are tensions everywhere? How do we even calm the tension? How do we ensure that Nigerians can return to that era where everyone could live in peace, go to their farms, go to their workplaces, and return productive? Well, as we said earlier, the conversations can never seem to end, but let's see how best we can delve into this and into the meat of the matter. To help us understand and look at the whole situation, we have in the studio Brigadier General Sani Usman, a retired former director of the Army Public Relations and former spokesperson of the Nigerian Army. Thank you for joining us, General.
Good morning, and thank you for having me on your program.
Also here is Kabiru Adamu, a security risk management and intelligence solution consultant. Thank you for joining us, Kabiru.
My pleasure. Thank you, and good morning.
So let's start with you, General Usman. You've been in there and you've seen it. Well, let me not say you've seen it all, but I could say you've seen it all. In your assessment, what do you think is our security situation in Nigeria right now?
Well, if you are taking Nigeria as a whole, it's a kind of a mixed bag, so to speak. There are high points and, of course, low points as it is. And invariably, I think we are not where we should be. And but the good thing about it is that efforts are being made to ensure that we attain that status of, tolerable level of security challenges in the country. And why I'm saying this is because I have seen, the concerted efforts on the part of, the government and, of course, the security forces, and particularly the armed forces, not just in terms of equipment, but renewed vigor, taking, the fight against some of the criminal elements, particularly if you look at the Boko Haram, terrorists, and of course the bandits, with myriads of operations ongoing and the successes recorded. But most importantly, of course, is the fact that the injection of new equipment and logistic support. But what is required more is, total, a whole state approach to security challenges. And if you look at some of even the state government, they are complaining of lack of cooperation on some of the parts, of some of the components of Nigerian society. So unless we look at security for what it is, a collective responsibility will still have to have, these challenges. But of course, again, there are other complementary issues associated with security challenges, the issue of governance in the Nigerian society. So by the time we improve on that, so it is not just question of the kinetic aspect, more boots on the ground and all the rest, but it has to go hand in gloves with other aspects, the issue of good governance and, of course, giving Nigerians sense of belonging so that the gap between the government and the governed is breached, so that everybody will have that kind of sense of obligation and sense of civic responsibility to look at security for what it is.
When you hear issues of kinetic approach to security issues, then there's the other part where everybody where the intelligence part, the part he mentioned, the issue of governance. Where I wanted to take it from was, what do you think? Would it be better if it's been on the exclusive list, security, for this length of time, and see where we are? It seems we went from good to bad, so to speak, and hopefully we are returning to good again. But would it be good if it was moved to the concurrent list so that the state and other arms of government can also get involved in the security operations in the country?
I'm definitely supportive of a decentralization of security, but sadly it's not as easy as that. We are running a system, just like you rightly said, that sees security from that federal component where it is in the exclusive list. But sadly, the reality is that there are also components that have decentralized security but are not embedded in the Constitution. The easiest example I'll give is the issuance of security vote. We do give states security vote, they collect them, and a majority of them use that security vote to fund federal operations, but not in a transparent manner. So why don't we go ahead and decentralize a component, have a framework that allows the state who collect security vote to now use that security vote in a transparent manner where we're able to follow those spending. And we already have a very good model, which is the Lagos model. The trust fund that Lagos has established, that is being run in a near transparent manner. We would know how much goes into that fund. We would know what that fund is used for. And of course, if you are interested as a individual corporate organization, you can invest in that fund for your own good. So I think perhaps going forward, and I'm quite happy and excited that the incoming administration has, to an extent, alluded to the fact that it's interested in the decentralization of security. So I think let's not mix the two. We can, several people talk about state policing. It's very different from a decentralization of security. The irony, and I use this word carefully, is that we've woken up to a situation where there is no state in this federation that does not have a state-level security arrangement. So we're already there, actually. The question is, how do we now embed what we already have into the structure that exists in the country? Now, there are already federal structures that ordinarily should have assumed some level of supervision, if you allow me to use that word, with these state-level structures that already exist. A good example is the police. When Kanu goes ahead to legislate and create HISBA, the idea is that the police will come in, train the HISBA, make sure that the HISBA understands where their power starts and where it ends. Same thing with Amotekun. But sadly, we're not seeing enough of that. So I think perhaps as the incoming administration comes in, this is where the conversation needs to go to. What do we do with these state-level security creations? How do we make sure they comply with the provisions of the Constitution so that the monster that has been created in a place like Zamfara that has led us to where we are does not continue to repeat itself? When state structures assume the powers of prosecution beyond, for instance, what they can constitutionally do, then sadly, we have situations like what we have in Zamfara. So the irony is I think we already have the situation in our hands. What we are not doing is making sure that what we have is working for us. I'm not an advocate of, people say we do not have enough boots on the ground. I don't think so. I think we have enough. What we haven't do is to ensure the 3 C's, collaboration, cooperation, and coordination. And by the time we do that, perhaps this issue of not enough boots on the ground would be taken care of.
Okay, so much as we're looking at the whole country, I mean, there are states that every time you mention security, they immediately come to mind. Kaduna State is one of them. And I think for a number of people, it's particularly befuddling because, a lot of our security, in fact, the Nigerian Army has a very big base in Kaduna. They have a lot of institutions right there in Kaduna. We've seen, how will I put it now? We've seen attacks even on trains going into Kaduna, etc. But one of the things I'd like to bring up, which stands out for me, is the fact that the Kaduna State government has a department or a ministry for internal affairs where they give a report. They account for how many lives were lost within a certain period. As a country, I'm a little, concerned that we do not have such a mechanism where we know, for instance, how many Nigerian lives were lost within a period and, to monitor perhaps from quarter to quarter or from one half of the year to another or from year to year, how we're doing in terms of security. We tend to measure it by what we hear in the news and how frequently or how intensely these reports came into being. So I'm just wondering, from what you can see, is there anything that we're missing out in terms of placing a value on the life of an average Nigerian? What does it really mean to us?
I agree with you totally. Not too long ago, I was fortunate to attend a lecture delivered by one of the most recognized military generals that we have, retired. And for some reasons, I wouldn't mention his name. And he identified this point you just made as a huge gap within the Nigerian security sector. And the good thing is, I also identified that this element a couple of years ago, and I've come up with a consultancy that provides that data. So every month, we produce a monthly report that shows the statistics. Because if we do not know the statistics in a verifiable manner, then a lot of what we'll be doing will be anecdotal. And sadly, because of the varied issues that have divided us, and two that I can mention is religion and ethnicity, you see it creeping into how those figures are used. And that is why I think it's absolutely important that the government embraces data. There is this morbid fear of data within the Nigerian security sector. And for obvious reasons, data does not lie. It would tell you where you are making progress, and it would tell you where you are failing. As an example, when we produce, so we've produced our first quarter report, and I can tell you authoritatively that about 2,000 Nigerians were killed within the first 3 quarters of 2023. In the month of January...
First 3 months, you mean?
First 3 months, yeah, the first quarter, first 3 months. Within the month of January, about 700 Nigerians were killed. By February, it reduced to 400. And by March, sadly, it increased to about 900.
900?
Exactly. So when you put all of that together, over 2,000 Nigerians have been killed so far. Now, it's not so bad. It is worrisome, of course, 2,000 Nigerians being killed in the first quarter of the year. Very concerning. But then what we were able to do is to also compare it with 2022. And we actually saw that there is a reduction. At the end of 2022, we know about 11,000 Nigerians were killed. So if we go quarter by quarter, 3 quarters in a year, times 2,000, it means if we retain that, about 8,000, which, in my honest opinion, is a reduction. Is it good? It's not good. But what is even more important is you can now look at that data, analyze that data, understand where those deaths are happening, what is causing those deaths, and more importantly, what you can do to reduce those deaths. So data has a lot of advantages, and I would encourage strongly that the incoming administration embraces data. It would help it in the use of the inadequate resources that we consistently, talk about. Now, going to Kaduna, I must commend the El-Rufai administration for establishing this Ministry of Homeland Security. What that ministry has done is it embraced data, and except and forgive me, I'm going to use this word, for those who are either ignorant or are mischievous, if you look at that data, you are able to see in all the, I think, 27 local governments of Kaduna State what has been happening over a period. So what they do is they release this statistics on a quarterly basis. And then at the end of the year, they put all the 4 quarters together and then produce the report. So a couple of weeks ago, I think 2 weeks ago, they produced 2 reports. The one for the first quarter 2023, and then the one for the whole year 2022. And when you look at that, it shows, first off, local government by local government, then secondly, senatorial districts, the 3 that are in Kaduna. And you can see clearly where there have been high incidents, and more importantly, the threat elements. And I can tell you for free that the singular threat element that has produced the deaths in Kaduna are non-state armed groups. These non-state armed groups can be divided into ethnic militias.
I'm going to have to pause you because I know you said quite a number of things, and I would like General Usman to intervene in this. I'm just a little curious because he said something about how our security architecture have a morbid fear of data. I do not want to imagine that, for instance, the Nigerian military will have a morbid fear of data. Is it that they use it privately but somehow are reluctant to talk about how they use this data when they come to the public?
Well, I think for the military, even though I've left the military for quite some time,
yes,
but I keep tab on what is going on, they do have data. And if you notice, every Thursday or every fortnightly on Thursdays, the Defense Media Operations comes out with this information, the data across, the 6 geopolitical zones, all the 36 states and the FCT, the security issues and what has been done over the period by the security forces. But I quite agree. It is not just enough for the military. Somewhere there should have been a clearinghouse, a kind of, where the 3 seats he has mentioned in terms of data, collection, analysis, and, usage is harmonized. It's for now, it is just Kaduna State and the military that is doing it. So what of the other components of the Nigerian society? Ministries, department, and agency, and the government, the tiers of the government as they are, and of course, the various state governments. So if you have that, on the basis of that, you can be able to, know what are those security challenges. And if we are taking Kaduna State as a reference point, beyond the senatorial districts, you can pinpoint particular local governments and the type of criminal activity that is going on. Sometimes it is not just kidnapping, but even there are other ancillary crimes. Take, for instance, rape and what have you. And the data has not even taken into account the casualties sustained by the military and security agencies. So somebody has to come up with a kind of clearinghouse that you compare. Then not just the government, he is doing a marvelous job with his Beacon Consult that on quarterly basis he comes out with data about security challenges and incidences in the country. But apart from them also, and I'm sure the American security forces are also doing it. So to what extent has government taken advantage of it to harmonize, and let's have the federal government or those state government and the local governments coming up with it, and invariably, apart from ensuring accountability and proper allocation of resources, it will ensure that some of the problems we can be able to pinpoint or kind of articulate solutions to them. Because it is not always that it is the issue of banditry and all the rest. There are also taking law into their hands, because if you look at this report, there are observations, and for a government to come out with that kind of thing, something has to be done. Possibly it is beyond the state government. Maybe the federal government has to come in, or maybe it is beyond the local government. The state has to come in, or even to what extent those people that have been affected are being engaged constructively so that we can find a solution to this. So the truth is that the military are having data, but of course, because of its very nature, it is not for public consumption, except those issues. But I know that on those fortnightly, and apart from that, there were quarterly conferences at the various level, at the defense headquarters level and the various services level. But it is just meant for them, and of course, all those that are affected by their activities and which need to be harmonized. But I think, again, because of the nature, if you look at the issue of data collection and the usage of data, I believe the Office of the National Security Advisor does so. But it's just that maybe it is not being given to the public as it is, just like Kaduna State, because they are elected government, so they owe that responsibility. But of course, it is not everything that is classified. We need to, so that the public will be...
just before our colleagues in Lagos come in, you said something that, yes, they have the data. The security apparatus has data, but it's not for public consumption. But we also have heard the security...
Not all of it.
Hold on, sir. We also have heard security tell us that security is everyone's business. The public needs to be a part of the security apparatus of the country. He mentioned something about decentralizing security. I'm sure that includes bringing in the governed into the security apparatus so that they can also play their own part. So and what has been so far is as though government says, we are government. It's our role to protect you, but you don't need to know, you don't need to see the data, you don't need to hear what we are doing. Don't you think putting out those kind of information would even help the public to protect themselves and help government in ensuring security?
You are quite right in respect of that. But what I'm trying to make you understand is that is the fact that military is just one aspect of the government.
True.
And naturally they are subjected to, the political authorities, control. So beyond the military, the government should take it up. You know, the military are doing marvelously well by being accountable fortnightly, given these statistics of what transpired. But beyond them, and it make it more believable, just like what we were discussing, that by the time you compare what they have, compare with what government has, an independent, consultant firm like Beacon Consult and the American on, you can be able to form a better picture, and you can be able to even fashion our solutions. I quite agree with you. If we were talking about decentralization of security, I think this is even a kind of, those are the inconsistencies associated with the Nigerian constitution. Take, for instance, I think a particular section has said the primary responsibility of government is what? Is security of lives and property. So how do you do that when you centralize everything? So you need to decentralize it and give everybody a sense of belonging, so that, because security challenges, if you want to, passion out solutions for them, it has to be intelligence driven. And it is not everything that equipment does that. In most instances, human intelligence is very, very critical. So how do you involve them if you do not decentralize some of these aspects?
All right, let's our colleagues in Lagos have questions. So, Aya.
Niata, let me begin with General Usman. It's the same question for you both, perhaps in different ways. Just a month ago, I think it's the governor of Bauchi State that talked about the fact that the military-civilian relationship cannot be overemphasized. And it's a talk that has been on for quite a while about having that conversation between the people that are being protected by security agencies and the security agencies, especially the military. We've also heard the COAS, along with a number of other people in the military, top brass, saying there is a need for us to win hearts and minds. In order for the military particularly, to be able to do that well enough, it's a wonder whether or not, from what you know about Nigeria's military-civilian relationship, how that can help in ensuring security, because since December last year, since December 2022 until now, almost every month, if you do a simple Google search of military-civilian relationship, you will find the issue being raised over and over again. It puts a question as to whether or not we're achieving anything in that regard, doesn't it?
I think substantial achievement, progress has been made in respect of civil-military relationship in the country, and taking into cognizance, let's even look at since 1999 to date. Before, there wasn't, concern about that. But I know for sure the military has made a concerted effort by establishing structures, because first and foremost, I know the Nigerian Army established a whole department at the Army headquarters called the Department of Civil Military Affairs, and all the services are having, and they also have it at the Defense Headquarters. But beyond that, also, they made effort to establish liaison offices at the National Assembly and the Federal Ministry of Foreign Affairs. But talking about real constructive engagement with the civilian populace, there are ongoing humanitarian activities at the various services level. And I could remember when Operation Crocodile Smile was launched, and there was this mischievous misinformation about, monkeypox and what have you. We realized that actually there is need to enhance civil-military relationship by having more humanitarian activities. And we don't, that time, usually every military exercise is usually accompanied with it. And in fact, I could remember in my thesis with NIPS, I made a recommendation that in fact the humanitarian activities should precede the military operations. But of course, there is issue of operational secrecy that you have to have a delicate balance in respect of that. And that is why you don't have it. But I can tell you there is improvement in terms of civil-military relationship because of the issue of oversight functions by, the concerned, arms of the government, and of course the liaison, and of course the humanitarian activities. I don't have the data now, but I know within the last 1 year, I think the military, the Nigerian army specifically, has constructed over or sunk more than 100.
If you don't mind me butting in, my sincere apologies, General, for butting in. How significantly can that go without a cohesive and seen to be cohesive relationship between the military and other security agencies, particularly the police, who we know it is not a function of the military, because to police Nigerians, so to speak, because I mean back in the 70s, many would remember that if you saw the military at all, it's a misnomer. In the Second Republic, you hardly saw military people, soldiers or military officials on the streets like we're doing now. But so the question then, is how can we achieve what you are saying significantly unless there is that cohesiveness of security agencies working together? There's a big question mark around that, don't you think?
Yeah, I was going to that when you interjected. What I want you to understand is that bulk of the security challenges are being tackled through joint internal security operation. Joint in the sense that it is not just the armed forces of Nigeria, but which involves other, components of Nigerian security architecture. In most instances, you see joint operations involving the police, the Department of State Services, the Nigerian Civil Security and Civil Defense Corps, and so on. So basically, it is there. And beyond even the operational level, there are also training programs, seminars, and courses at the Armed Forces Command and Staff College, and as well as the National Defense College and other training institutions, particularly the Nigerian Army Resource Center. Almost on daily basis, there are collaborative efforts bringing on board all the security agencies on the nuances of joint cohesion and collaboration. And of course, the coordinating body of respective security operations, they are also doing their best. But beyond that, again, I think we have to commend the armed forces because they don't even they don't even have budgetary allocation for some of these civil military affairs activities. I'm talking about the quick impact projects and the humanitarian activities that are being, conducted by them. And I know within the next few days or thereabout, as far as Gembu in Taraba State, I think the Nigerian Army is also commissioning another project. And beyond that, again, they have identified, communities that need certain things. Sometimes it is infrastructural projects.
My apologies. My sincere apologies, General. I had to butt in again. Those are highly commendable initiatives. There is no doubt about it. But again, it goes back to whether or not the people agree with some of these issues, irrespective of those lofty ideals that you're talking about. But let me quickly ask Mr. Adamu this particular question about the same, matter of people, security, being a part of the security apparatus of government. There's this quote from your report that you posted recently. You already mentioned that in March 2023, the government's efforts failed to prevent a month-to-month increase in security incidents and fatalities, as well as abductions. We recorded 485 incidents that resulted in 411 abductions and 954 fatalities in 36 states and the FCT. Between February and March, there was an increase of 7.3 abductions and 53.9 increase in fatalities. This is from your own report. Is there any way the people, the civilians themselves, can be a part of the apparatus to help to reduce these numbers progressively?
Thank you, Ayo. The only way is for the people to feel that the essence, the ethos behind security is actually working for them. Where the people cannot see that, where there is no accountability, and people cannot see that security is working for them, then it will be very difficult for them to support the security process. Now, as an example, where there are clear failures in public security deliverance, and there is no penalty, then it will be very difficult for the government to convince the people through whatever humanitarian or gesture or activity or civil military coordination component to, like the phrase you use, win the hearts and minds of the people. Because the people, too, are conscious of the fact that these organizations collect taxpayers' money every year. There is a budgetary allocation, and the function or the reason why they are given that budgetary allocation is stated in Section 14, subsection 2 of the Constitution, which is to protect lives and property. And yes, we must commend most of the security organizations. Things are bad, but they are better than, in some other countries that we know. What we all agree, and I think everyone who is sane in Nigeria agrees, that it can't be improved. And where failures like that happen, and last year I can mention 3 or 4 clear failures, and maybe General would help us by telling us who within the security sector was held accountable for those failures. The Kaduna train attack, the Kuje incident, the church attack in Ondo State, and several others. I'm not aware that one person has been held accountable for all of these failures. So it will be very difficult for you to convince the average Nigerian that, these security organizations are held to account for especially the monies that they're given. And I'm talking accountability in 2 areas, operational accountability and then financial accountability. Let's not forget that there are allegations against almost all the security organizations regarding probity and then, of course, the integrity with which they use that. Now, the solution to all of this, which sadly we're not speaking enough about, is data. And then by data, I mean introducing monitoring and evaluation measures within the security sector so that we can track when monies are given to these organizations. We can use M&E, we can use auditing functions to track how those monies is being used. And one of the simplest ways is the efficacy, the effectiveness of their functions. If kidnap or ransom was, say, 1,000 in the month of January, and I want to hold to account the security sector, by the end of February, I want to see kidnap for ransom brought to 500. If I've given them enough money, like they've requested, and they're not able to bring it down, then I should ask critical questions. And this element is an element that must be done by the 2 arms of government, the executive arm, and more importantly, the legislature. Like we see in the democracy that we borrowed from the US, they call for congressional hearings. They call for other forms of hearings. Now, we need to go that level in Nigeria, where the legislature in particular should have enough power to summon and question in a very clear and transparent manner progress and efforts by the security sector in reducing some of the security challenges using metrics. Any other way, frankly, that we go about it would be rather sentimental.
Indeed,
sometimes
Mr.
even anecdotal. But if we have...
Indeed, the importance of data cannot be overemphasized, and that was the crux of the matter at the beginning of the conversation. But just listening to you and the General, I'm just wondering if we've become comfortable, with the numbers and less alarmed, that we're talking about human beings here. 2,000 people killed in the first quarter in Nigeria in the first quarter of 2023. And you can also immediately tie that to what you're hearing from the people in these communities, whether it be Southern Kaduna or in Benue. The people say that government knows what it should do about these killings, but it does not do it. And I'm just wondering, I'm bringing this to you now, General. I'm wondering whether we're as alarmed as we should be about the numbers of people being killed and, the ultimate goal, what seems to be the ultimate goal here, which is land grabbing and dispossession, of the people's property. We find that when the killings occur, the people are dispossessed and then they're unable to return to their properties, to their land anymore, as we have seen in Benue and in Southern Kaduna. Are we as alarmed as we should be about the numbers of those being killed? And who really should be brought to book when the people say that government knows what it should do, but it doesn't do it?
Yeah, to be frank, It is really worrisome and disturbing. In fact, we were discussing this issue. I was wondering when, where did we miss the road? Because I could remember some years back, there was this, electrocution in some parts of Kaduna State, Kwanakwarakwai to be precise, in which 20 precious lives were lost. Everybody was agitated in the country and all the rest. Now we are not even talking about 50, we are not talking about 100, we are now talking in terms of thousands. So it is really, really disturbing and worrisome. But the issue at hand is that, and at the very beginning, I made reference to the fact that we should look at security issues for what it is, devoid of all these extraneous variables, religious sentiment, ethnicity, and what have you. Now, in most instances, we are working across purposes when it comes to security challenges or dealing with security challenges, and it shouldn't be, because you cannot afford to have a divided house. And no matter whatever you do, without, carrying the people on board, definitely it will be counterproductive. Because take, for instance, the issue of intelligence gathering. We have the menace of informants, especially in issue of kidnappings and banditry in the northwestern part of the country, simply because there are some people, they are just looking at, providing information to criminal elements is another means of livelihood, simply because of the fact that they have lost hope, in the country, or governance as monitor and evaluate and give, appropriate sanctions where there are errors. Will definitely will continue to be, going around a vicious cycle. So, but beyond that, again, the security services, they might have some requirements that are not necessarily material or financial. To what extent are they being provided for? Vis-a-vis the relationship with the government, vis-a-vis the relationship with the other components of the Nigerian society. And unless such things are addressed, we'll continue to have this problem. And we have to honestly, look at our value system. That's, look, the sanctity of human life has to be, ingrained into the psyche of an average Nigerian, so that whenever there is a loss of human life, even if it is one, it should be, condemned, and whoever is behind it, and particularly those things that are done unlawfully, should be investigated and brought, brought to book. Then we'll have solution to this problem. And if we do that, take for instance, you made mention that in most instances we only have condemnation. Are they spirits? How could a number of people will come into a community, kill hundreds of people, and just, vamoose into thin air? It's not possible. Somebody somewhere must have seen them. If we look at the issue of the train attack, if we look at what happened at the medium security correctional facility in Abuja, there were indications that, the people came in contact with certain people, that even assisted them, and in one way or the other with logistics, but nobody has reported. And of course, even if they have reported, to what extent, the reaction was swift, because it was alleged that they carried out that for quite a number of time without any response. But that notwithstanding, the issue of, bringing everybody on board is very important. At the same time, the issue of sanction.
And General, in that regard, you've said that, we should look at our value system, and Mr. Damo also talked about how, the people responsible are non-state actors. But isn't it worrying that, since these killings took a turn for the worse about 5 years ago or more, there has been no arrest? And I'm just looking at a report by the Southern Kaduna People's Union here. They're expressing concern that since 2016, there has been no evidence that any culprit has been arrested or prosecuted. And we're talking about thousands of lives being lost, to these relentless attacks. Who should we be asking why there has been no arrest since these killings took a turn for the worse?
Well, I don't want to argue with them. If you look at the statistics from Kaduna State, I think there were arrests and there are recoveries. So beyond that, and That is why I said we should not be talking at cross purposes when it comes to security issues. I'm not blaming anybody. People are really concerned about the loss of lives and displacements and the injuries incurred. But the truth is that we cannot have security unless we sit down and talk to ourselves and make sure that the necessary support is given to the people. When you lost confidence, when you lost faith in people, whatever they do, definitely you will not see it on the positive light. And these are some of the issues that are happening in that regard, and it shouldn't be so. But at the same time, again, the government, or it is a point of duty, regardless how you feel or how antagonistic people are towards you, you just have to bring them, to your wing and listen to them and make them part of the solution to the problem. Because in most instances, these people, they live within the society. People know them, but they will turn a blind eye. I can remember it was not quite long when I traversed some parts of, northwestern part of the country. And the most unfortunate thing, there was a particular communities, in fact, they were saying group of youths, they have been, been disturbing the community. They have been rustling cows, they have been rustling domestic animals and what have you. But everybody knows them. They know their parents, and nobody is doing anything, nobody is saying anything. And that is exactly how we came to where we are now, because all the kingpins involved in banditry and kidnapping in the northwestern part of this country were people, notorious people right from childhood, and the society turned a blind eye till when, the AK-47 and, of course, modern communications and, crime being dynamic as it is, made a difference. So unless we do so, we will continue to have a problem. Because the problem is that people, a criminal, simply because he belongs to a particular, value system that I represent, is not a criminal, unless if he comes from a particular value system, and it shouldn't be so. But at the same time, the government always has a point of duty, no matter what, to bring the people on board and make sure that you listen to them and make them part of the solution.
Mm. It's a very complex issue. I mean, you've spoken about criminals not being criminals because they belong to certain, I don't think the word would be value, because certain systems maybe might just be appropriate, because values is something that's supposed to bring good to society, and you have to ask, what sort of values can criminals, have, if it's not that we're just talking about base instincts, for instance. But let me come to you, Mr. Adamu, because you've talked about how we need to be, be more scientific in our approach to security. And looking at some of the figures which you have reeled out in terms of what even your own organization has done, I'm wondering, because you talked about how, there was, significant number of people who lost their lives in January. There was a dip in February, and then an uptick again in March. Were you able to see any reason for that dip we saw in February?
Definitely. But please permit me, let me just say a statement regarding the last question by your colleague from Lagos. I can't recall her name now, but I think Bukola, she needs to look at the report released by the Kaduna State government. I noticed she was focusing on Southern Kaduna, and sadly, that's not helping the situation. That report showed clearly the local governments that had the highest fatalities and frequency of attack. And in my opinion, and you can actually display the report, Southern Kaduna did not have the highest. If you pick the 3 local governments that had the highest, they are not from Southern Kaduna. It was not Central District. So focusing on Southern Kaduna, reaffirms 2 narratives that are injurious to us, and I mentioned them earlier on, ethnicity and religion. And that is why that report is actually instrumental. It tells you in a clear term that this is not ethnic, it is not religious, it's pure criminality. And if we look at it from that lens, I think we'll be able to address it better. Birningwari, which is not in Southern Kaduna, has the highest fatalities in both the yearly as well as the first quarter report. So again, I urge her to look at that report closely with that lens it will probably help us understand what is happening in Southern Kaduna. It's not about land grabbing. There are several other issues at hand in Kaduna State, and understanding those issues would help us to address them.
Well, we could focus. I mean, Kaduna can be a whole subject by itself. In 2 hours, you're still talking about Kaduna. But and I would really like to ask a question on that, but I already asked one. So let's start with that one first. Why do you think there was a dip in February?
A couple of issues. The elections in particular. The president gave a directive that the security agencies should use all the means at their disposal to provide an environment for a free, fair, and credible elections. And so we saw massive deployment from all the security organizations. The police, if I remember well, deployed about 300,000, even though we had our questions regarding that number. The military ran Operation Safe Conduct, I think. Yeah. And then all the other security organizations, almost about 19 of them, deployed at different levels.
Just to make the elections possible.
Exactly. Provide the environment for a free and credible election. Yeah, they were concerned about over-securitization of the elections, but it did its purpose. It provided the environment. The elections were held. And thirdly, that's factor number one. Second factor was the monetary policy that was introduced on the 31st of January. It reduced the number of cash in circulation. So crime that was cash dependent also dipped. A good example is kidnap for ransom. It dipped as a result of that. And then there are several other factors which are still being investigated. There is the suggestion that perhaps there is a political element to the activities of the non-state armed groups, and that during the elections, that political element swayed actively, and so it reduced their ability to do certain other things. And now that the elections are over, two things happened. There was a redeployment back to base from, of course, the locations where they were all deployed. So it opened up the environment for these non-state actors to operate more freely than what they did earlier on. And then, of course, the cash policy. If you recall, I think on the 3rd of March, if I remember well, the court ruled, and then they allowed now more cash in circulation. So some of those crime elements that we were came back. So some of these factors. Now, if you talk to the people, in Beacon Consulting, we have an atmospheric department. What we do is we listen to the chatter by people. Now, in those affected communities, they think it's actually the monetary policy. Well, from our expert view, I think it's a combination of all of these factors.
We're out of time, but in rounding up in 10 seconds each, the spike in crime around the first quarter, the communities, the locals, in the way all of them came together, doing one thing or the other, and self-protective initiatives, so to speak, and I think your report mentioned that as well. What do we do? What should be done to ensure that criminality goes down as much as possible in terms of governance and all that? So in 10 seconds, let's start with you, General.
Well, I think doing the right thing. And doing the right thing involves government. Society approach, the components of Nigerian society, and of course, ensuring the requirement by security agencies are given. And by the way, we still need the numbers of security agencies. Sincerely speaking, it's grossly inadequate.
Thank you.
Administration of criminal justice. Let's arrest and punish offenders.
All right, thank you so much. We've been looking at the security situation around the country. We had Brigadier General Sani Usman, retired, former Defense Army Public Relations, former Director, Army Public Relations. Thank you for coming on the show. We also had Kabiru Adamu, a Security Risk Manager and Intelligence Solution Consultant. Thank you for coming on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Sunrise Daily will be back in a moment. Just stay with us.
All the wealth and opportunities in the world today are created by two sets of people, the entrepreneurs and the intrapreneurs. An entrepreneur has an idea, creates a product or service, and builds an organization to support the effort of selling and protecting it. An entrepreneur creates new and innovative products within an established business. The Platform Nigeria invites you to its Business Summit for Entrepreneurs and Intrapreneurs on the 1st of May at the Covenant Place, Igomu, Lagos. Time, 9 a.m. Admission is free and no registration is required. Let's create opportunities and build wealth. The Platform Nigeria is powered by the Covenant Nation.
You like it?
I love it.
So let's get down to business.
You mean transfer to? What is this? That's a personal account. That is still me. I mean, I want to transfer all these millions into your personal account. I mean, I supply the movers and shakers of society. I do things properly. If you do not have a bank account in your business name, I cannot trust you. Better go visit moneypoint.com. Open a business account in your business name. Then me and you go fit talk.
Which one be this money point set?
Whatever it takes to make sure you have a business account opened in your business name, we'll do it as your sure banker.
But why didn't Morifa tell me about Money Point earlier? Where's Morifa?
Open a bank account in your business name with Money Point.
The President, Trade Union Congress of Nigeria, Comrade Festus Osifo, on behalf of the National Executive Council and the entire working people in Nigeria, welcomes invited guests to the maiden edition of the annual Nigerian Workers' Dinner and Award Night. Theme, Celebrating the Wealth Creators. Venue, International Conference Center, Abuja. Date, Saturday, April 29th, 2023. An event to celebrate outstanding Nigerian workers and employers of labor in public and private sectors as part of the 2023 TUC Pre-May Day celebration activities. Keynote speaker, Dr. Habiba Muda Lawal, former Permanent Secretary, SGF Office. Chairman of the occasion, Comrade Adams Aliyu Oshomole, former President, Nigeria Labour Congress and former Governor, Edo State. Red carpet starts 6 p.m. and dinner 7 p.m. Come and let's celebrate Nigerian workers who toil day and night to create our national wealth. Comrade Nuhu Toro, Secretary General, TUC, signed.
All the wealth and opportunities in the world today are created by two sets of people, the entrepreneurs and the intrapreneurs. An entrepreneur has an idea, creates a product or service, and builds an organization to support the effort of selling and protecting it. An intrapreneur creates new and innovative products within an established business. The Platform Nigeria invites you to its Business Summit for Entrepreneurs and Intrapreneurs on the 1st of May at the Covenant Place, Igomu, Lagos. Time, 9 a.m. Admission is free and no registration is required. Let's create opportunities and build wealth. The Platform Nigeria is powered by the Covenant Nation.
The President-elect, Mr. Bola Tinubu's residence, located at number 10 Justice Mohammed Bello Street in Abuja, has come alive again as party members, including the Vice President-elect, are visiting him shortly after his return from France. Inside the premises of the House, Mr. Tinubu addresses his supporters, stating how happy he is to be back home.
For us, let me take some rest for tonight. And after a long flight, eat some amala. So after that, sleep a little, and then tomorrow we meet.
Amidst the speculations over his health, the President-elect says he's strong and consulting ahead of his inauguration on May 29.
Whatever they like, they speculate. I'm healthy as sun, and I'm are alone. You govern with people. You consult. Assemble. And then hit the ground running.
Party members are happy that the president-elect has returned.
Everybody's happy that he's back. And we are sure that he's already setting things in plans.
It is our joy that Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the mentor of many, is back into the country to begin another process of developing youths in our country without any ambiguity.
Nigerians are also reassured of the quality leadership Mr. Tinubu is bringing to bear.
Now, as a president-elect, he is 100% fit, very ready to fix Nigeria and make Nigeria greater and greater again.
It's quite an exciting moment here for supporters of the All Progressives Congress, and particularly the President-elect Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who is now resting in his home here in Abuja under the watch of security personnel. Now, he has said that he is ready, hale and hearty, waiting for May 29, when he will be sworn in as Nigeria's democratically elected president. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
We're coming to you. Don't worry. Thank you for staying with us and welcome back to the show. So yesterday, the Abuja airport was...
especially the presidential wing.
Especially the presidential wing. And I understand there was a little bit of an accident. Some people fell, and it was really a mad, how do you call it, a madhouse. Everybody seeking to, or supporters of the president-elect there to receive him, and then everybody wanting to touch or greet him, especially, you know. But be that as it may...
The security operatives certainly had a Herculean task.
It was... Our correspondent who was there talks about the fact that it was really a tough job controlling the crowd that came in there to receive him. But he is back in the country, the president-elect, and although he says he's hale and hearty, there are those who believe that his trip abroad was mainly for medical treatment, and circulating on social media is alleged evidence of medical intervention in the president-elect's health. But he is back. He's declared that he's hale and hearty, and he's ready for the task ahead, the task of moving Nigeria to the new place. As he said in his campaign slogan, renewed hope. Nigerians should have renewed hope in the fact that the country is going to be better in every way. The question then is, what should Nigerians really expect from the president-elect when he gets into office? Political calculations ahead of inauguration, cabinet formation, and the National Assembly leadership. But if you heard him when he spoke, said, I am back and ready for the task ahead. Well, a member of the All Progressives Congress is in our studio today. Alwan Hassan is here to help us understand exactly, I am hale and hearty, what it means. So, welcome, Alwan.
Thank you so much, Nyota.
You mixed that name.
This is my first time having you here.
It was doing a mix of our names.
Mauti. Okay, Alwan, so yesterday, were you at the airport?
I was actually coming in from Kanu.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, but you heard the president-elect talk about his health and he's hale and hearty and ready for the task ahead. If I ask you, what do you think? Of course, you say yes, he's correct. So let's move it the other way. What should Nigerians expect now that the president-elect is?
Well, how would you now? Because you know the truth that he's held.
I know the truth. I'm not a doctor.
That he's held and healthy, and the person you saw yesterday is held and healthy. He doesn't even have to say it. So that's why you're saying you don't have to ask me, because this is what I will say. Of course, we had a Buhari in 2015 that they said was cloned. This man has spent 8 years stronger than a lot of them. Some of them that said Buhari was going to die died before Buhari. So it's only God that gives life and health. And let's be praying for our leaders so as not to have common confusion in the ranks, you know. So he's back. He's back. And
indeed, everyone will be hoping that their leaders would stay healthy so that they can deliver governance to the people. Well, our last guest, we're discussing security, and one of the things that Brigadier General Usman talked about was the fact that governance has added to the insecurity situation in the country. So now, in expectations of Nigerians of the incoming administration, what do you think? What kind of governance should Nigerians be expecting?
I really needed to have seen him here and ask him what does he mean by governance has added to the insecurity first. Because, of course, what this government met on ground as an insecurity issue has been really dealt with. It was just Boko Haram. And today in Abuja, you can drive everywhere and even pass Villa. We knew the times that you couldn't even pass in front of force headquarters when we came in. So it depends on what one.
You're talking about Abuja. What about the other parts of the country?
Abuja, Kaduna, people travel every day these days, you know? So you see, these are not things we met on ground. What we met was Boko Haram, and we fought Boko Haram. Let me tell you, Neota, the whole thing is, the whole thing is, our security architecture was not designed to fight such a war. So as it is, there is no government that has sat security for a security meeting like this government. And they are trying to re-engineer the security architect so as to tackle this situation. There is no government, Neota, there is no president on this earth that will be happy to leave a legacy of bad omen in his regime. If you see things going out of the way, it's just because it can't be handled. That point, you know? If you count how many soldiers we have, how many military personnel, how many people do we have in our institutions that are supposed to guide us? There's just very few. So we need to recruit. You need to recruit. How much do we have to now recruit and be borrowing money to pay police, to pay military, to pay because we want them to be everywhere, you know? So, but then if you count, but of course, it is the responsibility of the government. The first responsibility is the security of life and properties of its citizens. And I bet you, Asuwaju will do better. He will pick up from where this government has stopped and build on it. There is a lot that has been done in reorganizing and re-engineering the security architect in this country. Asuwaju will pick up from there and build on it.
For a number of people, they don't think that, yes, security is extremely important. I mean, as our Constitution says, the primary responsibility of government is the security and welfare of the people. So we cannot overemphasize the importance of security. And of course, the assessment of the Buhari administration on how it fared concerning security will be the job of the Nigerian people. They are the ones who will be able to determine how safe they felt under his administration, or how safe the community was, you know, under his administration, given the promises that he made and what he eventually delivered. But this is where we currently are. We're expecting a new government to be sworn in on the 29th of May. And we understand the circumstances around our elections. We saw what happened after the 25th of February and how Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu was declared president. This is the first time, you know, that a president is emerging and not winning the most popular votes. For some people, they say, yes, he won, from what we can see, even though that has been disputed by other political parties in court. But if you were to total the votes of all the other political parties who also participated, well, maybe not all, at least three of the other major contenders, that of the PDP, that of the Labour Party, and also that of the NNPP, you will see that a lot of Nigerians rejected the All Progressives Congress. And so you still have the fallout of the elections to deal with. The fact that people are still very upset with your political party, and in some instances, you know, the divisive rhetoric that comes with the elections usually tends to polarize people. So there are questions as to whether or not your party is aware of, the fact that he has to deal with the fallout of the elections and has a task of uniting Nigerians around a common purpose. Do you think that is something that your presidential candidate, who is now president-elect, is capable of doing?
Absolutely. He's managed parties before, and he's done very well with them. He's given people platform, people like Atiku to contest for president on a platform he nurtured. And first, and what I want to tell you, Maupe, is hence the call for the NEC to sit.
The NEC of what?
The NEC of APC to sit. I agree with you when you said we had 8 million and other parties, if you put together, are more than also people rejected us. Of course, even without bringing other parties, we had 40 million votes in 2019. We had about 50 million votes in 2015. Today, we are having 8 million votes. Of course, it's something to worry about. Where are those 6 or 7 million votes? This is a sole responsibility for the party to sit down and do a post-mortem of the elections. And why we need to call in, and that's hence why we need to call in the NEC, so as it is the NEC, first of all, that would even try to nominate people for the advisory committee, because we don't have a BOT now. We've turned it to, it's now an advisory committee for the party. These are the people that will be nominated into the advisory committee that will be advising the government. And I'm telling you this, Maupe, Asiwaju's government will have synergy between the federal government and the party, unlike what we've seen in the past. President Muhammadu Buhari is not a politician, and we've seen the party doing its ways and the government taking its ways too. A lot of things had happened where the presidency said he doesn't want to involve himself in political parties and political party affairs. So, but it's going to be different this time around. You have the president that is a politician. You have his vice that is also a politician. These two people cannot just stay back and watch the party doing what it likes doing, So there is going to be a lot to be done. The internal party reforms,
So you think that this has to start from within the All Progressives Congress? A lot of people are going to say, how is the business of the APC our business? I mean, what we're asking for...
Who are those people?
We did not elect the APC.
But when you want to ask me questions, Maupe, when you want to ask me questions, you ask me questions based on our manifesto. So why would they now remove the party from the government? Whatever it is you want to ask me, or things we've done, or things that have been put in the manifesto. The question you ask me is, this is what you say in your manifesto, and the same people that would say they are not asking party, they are asking the government. When they see things, policies...
Just a quick one, since you want to take it from that angle. Would the party, or can the party reprimand the president if he does not follow the manifesto of the party?
And let me tell you, I'll come to that. And let me tell you, Maupe, there is no policy, there is no government policy that doesn't have a political implication. Hence, you must work with your party.
Okay. So the question again, can the party, or will the party, hold the president to account if he goes against its manifesto?
You see, Neota, there has never been a politician as consistent as Asiwaju in this country. The renewed hope agenda has been what he's been talking about since he was Lagos governor. This man has promised, and as he said, is going to hit the ground running.
Oh, well, you've not answered the question.
What's your question?
Maupe asked you a question and you said, no, you cannot take the party out of it.
Yeah, because policies of government are usually must have political...
Okay. And the question I asked was, will the party hold the president, when he gets into office, accountable and possibly reprimand him behind closed doors if he goes contrary to the manifesto of the party? Absolutely. Since you say the manifesto belongs to the party.
Absolutely. The party is going to be the supreme. He's done that before with ACN, we've seen it. He's done that before with other parties he was part of. Absolutely. Haven't I come here before to call out a member of my party, Maupe? I have, so many times. We do that. And sometimes you do that to make them improve.
So
but I mean, of course, you've called out members of your party, but maybe not the president, because oftentimes people, anytime they want to talk about the president, it's always about the people around the president are not, reprimanding. The people around the president don't seem to be giving him the correct picture. There's always shielding of the president. There is no direct calling out of the president.
But I've called out the president during the Naira redesign. I've called out the president. I've said that we're not with him on this. We've defended him so much that we can defend this because this has a negative impact on the masses. I've said it.
Well, I was just willing to say that, for a number of people, they believe that, excuse me, the political party is a vehicle. And that when it's a vehicle that takes you to a certain destination, and the point you are at your destination, you now have to worry about the larger populace. It's no longer just about your party. And that, the task at hand is bigger than just the APC and its internal shenanigans. They believe that this is time for instance, now we see what is happening in the National Assembly. There's jostling for the top seats in the National Assembly. I know that, yes, your party would want to have a say. It's not clear where it is going. And people are saying that, is it also possible that, as a result of its indecision, it's not being able to take a stance early, could it also happen that what, happened to it in 2015 could happen again? These are things that will happen regardless of whatever it is that your party does.
Maupe, how could you tell me a party that had governors that came out to speak against a northern nomination to inherit President Muhammadu Buhari because they wanted a southerner, that same party will not be looking at the National Assembly's leadership? This cannot happen. It can't happen. Of course, the number 3 person would have to go to the south and would have to be a Christian. We found ourselves in a situation whereby religion and tribe play a very big role in our politics, in even governance. Having a Muslim ticket gave us a lot of headache. Now we have won for balance, equity, and capacity. I want that word capacity. He has to be competent. The Senate President has to go to the south. South, and southeast, not even southwest. Anybody coming in as Senate President should be that person from the southeast or south. That is the only way we will strike a balance. And that is what my party will do. And you see it.
Southeast and South are not one region. They're 2 different regions. It has not been able to decide.
But you have just 3 senators from there.
Clearly.
The 2 regions. 2 from southeast and 1 from the south.
That's not correct. Senator Pabio, yes, is from the south. Adams Oshomole is also from the south.
He's a first-time senator, so he can't be Senate President.
Is from the south.
Dixon?
Yes.
Is from the south. Okay, yes. So you have 2.
They're more than that.
Yeah, but Dixon is an opposition. He can't be Senate President.
Okay,
unless if there is rumble. I'm talking about my party. Comrade Adams Oshomole is a first-timer.
And what about this part where the opposition parties are looking to come together for that office? Because if you put them together, they outnumber your party in the Senate.
So, but they know, but you can't put, they never came together alone and voted a speaker or a Senate President.
They never did?
Yes. You must have the ruling party. Whether more numbers or lesser numbers, you must have the ruling party. Let me tell you, the stakeholders in this, you see, the National Assembly, the party has to have a say. The majority party has to have a say in it. There is no way you can leave the National... Well, of course, there are 3 groups that influence the election of the leadership of the National Assembly. One is the governors, whether you like it or not. Governors have so much influence in who becomes who in the National Assembly. Secondly, you have an old-timer groups. For example, Honorable Abdul Mumini Jibrin. Such people have so much influence in who becomes the Speaker of the National Assembly. A lot of them are not even in the National Assembly, but even in the outside, you have to consult with them because they have influence in there. Then you now come to the members elect in the National Assembly. So you have these 3 groups, and we will strike a balance. And let me tell you, there is nobody that would not want to align with what his party says and its government.
So you're implying that the APC is already working out, negotiating with the opposition and all of that?
Of course we're not sleeping. We're reaching out to Governor Wike. We're reaching out to opposition parties. We're reaching out to even our own party members, because
why would you choose to mention Governor Wike? Is he the only governor that you're reaching out to?
Yes, he's one of our heroes in the opposition. I like him. He's a very straightforward person. He delivered River State for us, a state that our own sitting governor in 2015 could not deliver. Amechi couldn't deliver it as a governor in 2015. But Wike as an opposition delivered River State for APC.
Are you pushing out the former governor of River State?
I'm telling you the truth. It is the truth. I'm not pushing him out. Why would I push him out? I'm just telling you the truth. Wike did what Amechi couldn't do.
You have heard that the circumstances under which he delivered in quote, have been very controversial. I do not know if you...
It's controversial in Kanu. But we saw how people came out and rejected us. But it's controversial. It's controversial in Kaduna because we were the ruling party in Kaduna State, but we lost. It's controversial everywhere. Every election is controversial.
Shouldn't it be straightforward?
You can't have it straightforward.
Well, the introduction of all
of the... I'll tell you now, it will be by counting and by official announcement of INEC. He is third, but he's telling you that he's first. Atiku and Obi, two people are in court saying I came first. So it's always controversial.
Okay, so I mean, from what you've said, it does appear that there will be quite a bit of uniting to do within your party. But let me go to Lagos now, because I know my colleagues have questions for you as well.
Thank you, Makwe, and it's interesting listening to the conversation from this side of the divide. I'm just wondering, because there are so many other interests that the party, your party, will have to manage, Mr. Hassan. Speaking of, other ranking senators, quote and unquote, who are from other parts of the country, but who have a sense of entitlement to that position of Senate, president, and also at the House of Representatives as well. How's your party managing their interests such that, they can align should the party decide to eventually cede the leadership positions to the Southeast and, to the other regions apart from the Northwest in the House of Representatives?
Of course, there is a lot to give in the National Assembly, not just the Senate President or the Speaker. There is the Deputy Senate President. There are leadership positions on the floor. So the party is doing just that. It's talking with its members that are contesting. It's talking with its members that are not even contesting. It's giving them reason, We're giving them reason why this should happen or that should happen. Even anybody, let me tell you, anybody contesting from the northern Nigeria, for example, contesting for the Senate from the northern Nigeria, is just because it's interest. But he knows that to do the right thing, you have to have the number 3 person coming from the south. And that south should be south or southeast. And it should be a Christian, so that we don't have an issue to now be grappling with from now to next year again,
Still on the conversation on the president's-elect's health, we saw him yesterday, at, the reception given to him upon his arrival, that he was looking healthy, and he in fact walked from alighting from the aircraft to the reception to be received by party members. So we can only accept what he has said, that he's hale and hearty. But looking at him more critically as against what happened in the last 8 years under President Muhammadu Buhari, where, there was an issue of medical tourism over a period of time. Even though the party is letting us know, and the president-elect has also said that he's healthy, are we looking at another round of medical tourism under, this incoming administration, where his health status would have to be managed in the same manner as we have seen in the recent past?
I am not God that will tell you that can happen. It's only God that has our lives and our health in his hands. But I assure you that an Ashwaju's 4 to 8 years will do a lot in the health sector in Nigeria. And if you look at our manifesto, there is a lot being put there that once it's implemented, the issue of traveling abroad for medical health will be over, inshallah.
But do you agree that there should be more accountability as far as his health status is concerned? I mean, we're looking at a 70-year-old man.
That we should be looking at his health.
There should be more transparency where his health is concerned.
What do you want? What did you ask any question about his health and no one answered you?
The questions will follow.
He has to take care of himself.
The questions will follow
40s.
in the coming days.
Let me tell you, I'm in my 40s. I check myself once every 6 months. He is in 70s. This man has passed through rough waters, a lot of rough waters, from the days of Nadeko, from the days of the military. This was one person that has stood to fight the military regime. You know, there have been ups and downs, sleepless nights, and he's in his 70s. And if you have an uncle that is 70, ask him how he battles to take care of himself. That is just it. He's good, he's well, and one good thing
my apologies
about Ashwaju is he has that head to form. Okay, well, go ahead.
Which is the issue that my colleague is speaking to. Accountability, transparency about these issues, because we need to know. Nigerians need to know the state of the persons that are in charge of their lives. There's a long line of U.S. presidents who lived with disabilities while in office. A president, I think it's Roosevelt, for instance, was already in the build-up to a paralysis before he became president, and he was elected in 1933. So there shouldn't be any issue about that. But I'm speaking to the issue that you raised and which you responded to with my colleague Bukola. Should we be looking forward to a situation where the Nigerian president doesn't travel abroad to take care of his health? Recently, the vice president commissioned, just a second, the vice president commissioned a private facility in Lagos and proudly sat for a relatively complex surgery within that same facility. Should we look forward to such a thing by Nigeria's president and leaders?
Absolutely. This is what we're looking for, Ayo. Absolutely. We've had, because I could have reminded you, we've had the vice president, a sitting vice president, go to Lagos and had surgery in his leg. So it means things have improved. And Ashwaju will do better to that, to an extent that he doesn't need to go out if he wants to take care of himself. And saying, Ayo, do you want us to start announcing that our president is sick, he has headache, or he has catarrh?
With that,
you know?
If you can proudly say, what is wrong with that, Mr. Hassan? Just a second. If we are proud enough to recruit him into office, and you have also identified and emphasized the fact that he is 70, everyone knows that, that is the situation. The same thing happened when President Obasanjo was in office. He recently disclosed that he's battled with diabetes for 35 years. He was in office as president of Nigeria 24 years ago for 8 straight years, and that information wasn't known to people. So what is wrong with leaders disclosing their state of health so that people that they govern can empathize?
Okay. Well, Ayo, of what good could that have been during Obasanjo's regime?
Of what
to just come out and say, pray for me, I have diabetes? Did it affect governance? It never affected anything. Nobody knew. He did his best. He tried his best and did very well. So, but then why would one now come out to say, because I'm president, even if it's not going to affect my work, that I should announce to Nigerians or to my people that I have this illness? I don't think it's important or it's necessary.
Well, let's bring the conversation back here to Abuja. There'll be lots of things to, clean up in the event to not just the president, of course, settling down, and of the governors-elect as well. One of the places where a number of people will be looking to see, and I don't know, for people who will be looking for perhaps, some people will be visiting the Electoral Act again. I don't know, some people have already started saying there are things that we might need to revisit in the Electoral Act. But we saw incidences of infractions in the run-up to the general elections, and I know that you're a member of the All Progressives Congress. I do not know what you made of the situation which we saw in Adamawa, the controversy, whereby a resident electoral commissioner who is not imbued with the powers to do so announced a winner, so to speak. And then we also saw the governorship candidate of your party doing an acceptance speech and then eventually going to court to try and make that stay. Well, the right thing has now been done. The returning officer has done what he's supposed to do. A winner has been declared, rightfully so. The governor-elect is the current governor of the state. But some people think that your party ought not to be silent on what transpired in Adamawa, given just what had transpired in the state.
What do you want us to say? What did you want us to say?
Are you not embarrassed by the situation in Adamawa?
There are worse situations in other parties. We've seen where 4 people impeached a governor. I don't even want to compare.
Are we doing a comparison of what is worse?
That's why I'm saying I'm not doing comparison, but what do you want us to say? We allowed the institutions to do their jobs, and they did very well.
Okay.
So what do you want us to say? If we had intervened, the same people would now have said it is us that did what?
Awan, it would be good. It's good you allow the institutions.
The IG of police withdrew the CP. The INEC chairman weighed in swiftly and made sure the right thing was done. What else?
Awan Hassan, a member of the All Progressives Congress, it's good you came in to share with us and clarify on some things. But it would have been good. It would have been good for your party to say, we condemn this act completely. It would have been good. Next time. All right, thank you so much for coming on to the show. Thank you. And just before we go, let's see what you have said to us via your tweets. Festus Akimboewa said, sadly, all the promises politicians made in their manifestos will not be kept, and they are not legally enforceable. So for us to enforce them, we must hold government to account and at all levels too.
Olagunju says we cannot continue to accommodate incompetency and expect growth. It is the paradox of evolution from individual to tribal and then back to individual. We strive for a perception of freedom, yet ever dependent on tribal security. We need to address national security.
A lot to think about there. And Law Alpha Cross says, one major subsisting national challenge which the incoming administration is expected to tackle headlong is the security of lives and property of Nigerians. That can be actualized by adequate deployment of both resources and personnel with requisite capacity and abilities.
Kenneth says the satellite that Nigeria launched, what is it being used for? In this computer age, everything is computerized. Let the federal government install powerful cameras that can pick up whoever is hiding in the forests. It is shameful that bandits can attack villages and police stations without being seen before the attack. Nigeria should come up with a world standard in technology. With modern technology, some crimes can be avoided.
And that's the show for today. I want to thank you for letting us be a part of your morning. I'm Neota Igwe.
Thank you for watching. I'm Maokwe Yusuf.
Thank you for allowing us to share your morning. I am Bukola Koka.
And don't forget, Maokwe already sang in the morning. Holiday is over. Get to work. I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful rest of your day.